This is Radio Plasma, a space dedicated to the exchange of ideas. Conversations, stories, music, performances, and randomness. Listen at radioplasma.com. Also, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Play, TuneIn, and Stitcher. Welcome to Radio Plasma. I'm Johan Rashi Vega, and we have a session where we're going to talk about interesting and important news about different topics and different activities that had to do with the history of Holyoke and the preservation of many of our historical assets. And for that reason, I want to welcome today Olivia, Mausel, and Comeau, who have been involved in many of these preservation activities and a mission of keeping the history of Holyoke alive. So thank you for being here and welcome.
You're welcome.
So we have to start a letter that you shared with us recently, which is really good news to share with the public, particularly for Holyoke, to know that there is support for a project that has been in the works for a couple of years already.
Since 2014, I think the first two windows were done, and there was a matching grant from the library and the Mass Historic Commission, 2014. And so, which fast forward up to June 13th, 2019, we applied, Mike McManus, the superintendent of the Department of Public Works, applied for a grant, the 25th grant for the MPPF fund. It's called Massachusetts Preservation Project Fund. And so they come from all over the state. Fortunately, they're familiar with our project, so this is continuing with 3 windows that need to be done, and they matched with $55,000. Not a full match. The CPA, Community Preservation Act, awarded the city $75,000. We asked for $75,000, and we got it with a promised match from Mass Historic. So we didn't get the full 75. We got 55 of the match. So that's going to go towards Michael McManus is going to use all that, and it go towards just 3. Hopefully the 3 windows that are in storage right now. And there's also a proposed $50,000 grant from the state, which Aaron Vega's office was able to earmark, so which would put us, give us like full funding if that comes through. So we're very, very happy about that. So we've got a lot of support, and we're anxious to, the problem is, because it's not really a problem, but the project has to go out to bid. So you can't automatically go back to the same people who did the first 2 windows, although I'm sure they'll be in the mix, but it has to go out to bid with city regulations and all that. So that's on Mike's desk.
But at least it shows that the progress of the preservation and restoration of the stained glass at City Hall is ongoing and is funded, and it continues to have the efforts to have this project completed and be able to keep enjoying of this beautiful work of art for future generations to enjoy.
Well, they right now, if you go into the ballroom on the second floor, you'll see 2 windows are done, are restored, and then there's 3 windows that are that have no stained glass in them. And it was suggested by Julie Sloan, the preservation consultant, the city consultant, to take those windows out because they were so delicate. And she didn't want to have any problems, want them to fall and have missing parts. So she recommended that those windows be taken out. And they're crated, they're already crated and stored in City Hall, and we're ready for transportation to the new whoever gets the bid to do the windows.
Knowing that Bob is an expert on the details of the history of many things in Holyoke, buildings, locations, how old are these stained glasses?
Oh, the stained glasses were put in.
Original to the
Yeah,
building.
the original building. So they're about 1871 they started the building. And it's extremely old. And it's about time that they do this. You don't want to lose this work.
So definitely is a really exciting moment to have receiving this information, knowing that now the Massachusetts Historical Commission is granting this funding to continue the preservation and restoration of the stained glasses at City Hall. So this is good news, and certainly something that is good to celebrate, and to think that it was a year ago, to be exact, on 4th of July 2018, when we saw also the clock to be put back to work. And that was a beautiful experience. I was fortunate to be there at the moment where David Cotton put back to work the clock at the midnight of 4th of July 2018. And it was a powerful moment to see this clock coming back to life after a long process of restoration and taking care of every little detail of this machinery. And again, a beautiful piece of machinery, but at the same time, a piece of art. Yes. That is this whole mechanism in such a big structure like City Hall.
Pendulum started. Midnight.
Well, you spoke to David Cotton.
It should be a go.
Who repaired the
clock is online.
Right?
Yes, during
that process
yes.
before. Yeah. So I brought this picture here of him doing. We have him scheduled to do a tour in October. So, God willing, he's available, because this isn't his clock repair isn't his main job. He's a forester. So, and he helps with all other kinds of situations too. So, we got this picture from originally, Ken Lefebvre?
Yes.
Yes. He started us on this journey to get the clock fixed, and he researched and found the movement, what kind of movement it was, and also we found out that the original clock face were black with gold lettering, and they didn't. The populace complained about it because they couldn't tell what time it was. So they couldn't see from the distance. It's like 225 feet up from the sidewalk. So, the black faces were changed to this Belgian milk white that they are now. And so the clock is original to the building too, I think. I'll have to check my notes on that, as well as the bell. Now, we have a question to ask you. Ken is looking for the sound of the bell. He asked me if I knew anybody, so I'm putting the word out. We're looking to see if anyone recorded the last time the bell rang in City Hall. So,
and the sound of it, right?
The sound of it, yeah. So apparently it rang during Mayor Dunn's inauguration, and before him it was Mayor Prue. So that goes back to the 70s. in there. So, and I don't, just for your information, for you could find the sound of the bell. And even I said, Ken, so what about the foundry? Can we go back to the foundry? He says, they're gone. They're not in existence anymore. So that's another project that the Friends of City Hall is working on, is to help restore keep the stained glass windows, keep going forward on the stained glass windows, keep moving forward and keeping the clock intact and maintained, and also trying to work on the frame of the bell. The bell needs a new frame, so we were wondering how we're going to get the bell. How do you get that bell out of the tower and repair the? It's not the bell; it's the frame that the bell is in that needs repair. So.
But for that, you need to remove the bell temporarily.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember David mentioned to me that the mechanism for the bell needs a whole process of restoring, which is another big project to take care of. And I remember when the clock was put back to work on 4th of July, 2018, he manually made the bell sound.
Rings for 12 o'clock.
Oh, really?
So at least we have that sound.
Okay.
manually generated. But thinking about the last time the clock and the bell worked by itself, so we're talking about 40 years, more than 40 years ago. It will be interesting to see if there is any archive or anybody who might have some audio of it. Video, I will think it will be really hard because it will be possibly just film. If someone got to actually capture it purposely or by accident. But audio, who knows?
Maybe during a St. Patrick's Day parade, in the background, maybe someone can catch that sound. And maybe someone has the tapes.
It will be interesting to see if someone has
you
that.
never know what's out there.
Yeah, so let us know. And definitely it will be a beautiful work of recovering some history through sound.
Right.
But at least we have that sound, and I will provide a sample of it on this.
Okay.
So we can enjoy at least
good.
the one that we got the chance to
Did you
hear a year ago.
manually? I don't know if Ken knows that. We'll have to. I'm sure we'll let him know.
So this tour of the clock is scheduled to happen on October 19 at 10 a.m. It will be a 2-hour tour of the tower, and all the information for this tour is available at Eventbrite, and we are going to make this information also available with the posting of this conversation, so that way whoever is interested on touring the tower at City Hall and have a very unique insight of the most iconic building in our city, this is a perfect opportunity to enjoy it.
It's an interesting. It's a work to get upstairs. There are 4 flights, 4 levels, I should say, and they're in different. They've been maintained, but they also, you have to be careful where you walk. You have to sign a release, and because the tower's locked most of the time. All the time, it's locked. So only maintenance people go up there. So you can go to the tippy top and take pictures too if it's a good day. It's a good clear day. So The morning session, there's a fee for $30 for anybody over 17. And the afternoon session is a special session with Dave, and that's a $100 donation. And what happens with those, with the donation, and it goes to the Friends of City Hall, it goes into that fund so we can start working on the bell and other things and the stained glass windows. So there's a lot to be done. There's lots of projects to be done there. So a lot of people come to that.
So definitely one opportunity to see the tower, the clock, and learn a little bit of history of Holyoke firsthand to continue the preservation and restoration of these valuable assets for the city. But this is just one of many activities that you are working on. And of course, Bob, you have been doing for several years now the tours around the city, and the Canal Tour is one of the most famous, but you also have been doing other tours where you have been sharing your knowledge about some of the buildings and also other important historical places and elements that are around us that sometimes we just take for granted or we don't even realize they are there.
Yes, I've been giving tours for 5 years now, and this year I have 6 tours. I made them so in the spring I had 3 tours, and they were all 3 of them were cemetery tours. The first one was at Calvary and Elmwood Cemetery, and we had about 25 people show up, which surprised us. It turned out a lot of the Irish ethnic citizens of Holyoke wanted to learn about where their grandparents were buried. Then 2 weeks later after that, we had St. Jeromes Cemetery Tour. And again, 25 people showed up. Some were repeats, but some new. And that made us very happy. And on that tour, I concentrated a lot on the priests, the Catholic priests of Holyoke. And we visited a lot of their graves. And then the last one in the spring was the Smith's Ferry Cemetery, which is in the northern part of Holyoke. And that one is a very small cemetery. It's Protestant citizens. Most of them are Northampton citizens, but there's a few people from Holyoke buried there. And that was a lot of research. The first 2 I had looked at a lot when I did family trees for my nephews and nieces, but the last one I had to put a lot of effort into it. It was a very complex cemetery. Now, but this fall, I have 3 more tours. There's going to be a new one this year called the Ashley Pond Reservoir Tour. It's going to be Saturday, September 14th, start at 10 a.m. and end 20 minutes past noon. And it's going to be starting at the Elks Club. And it's going to be a 4-mile trek around the 2 large reservoirs that make up Ashley Reservoir. We're hoping to get people that are very interested, but also want to walk a lot and see the scenery. It turns out the Ashley Reservoir is the center of all reservoir activity in Holyoke. The Southampton Reservoir, the McLean Reservoir, both lead into the Ashley Reservoir. And I didn't know that ahead of time. So when I started research, I said, oh, this is going to be like last year when I researched the Whiting Street Reservoir. I put about 35 hours into that. Well, so far this year, I put 100 hours into the Ashley Reservoir. And I just finished it yesterday, finally. I looked at the last of the report, and I'm glad it's over. But 100 hours of research it took. But now I understand the reservoir, and I'm waiting to give that tour. And then the 5th one this year is going to be the Whiting Street Reservoir Tour. It'll happen Saturday, October 12th, start at 10 a.m. and end 20 minutes past noon. And we're going to meet right at the top of Mountain Park Access Road. And this is a repeat of last year's tour. Last year we had about 25 people showed up. I actually gave 2 tours that day, one walk and the other bike. And this one's going to be 1 tour together. You can either walk it or bike it. And it's going to be 4 miles again. And I love giving tours around this because this was my cross-country course when I was in high school. And last year my former coach had been well, we have given him a big party and we give him lots of awards, but we also had for him a plaque on a stone out at the Whiting Street Reservoir. The Holyoke Waterworks had agreed to this project, and we put a big stone up for him with all his championships that he has won, and we gave a portrait of him. And that tour last year had 5 of my teammates show up, so I was very happy. But this year it's going to be slightly different. We're going in a reverse direction, and there'll be even more information because I have filled it out with more information. The last tour, though, is the one I've been given now for 4 years. It's the Holyoke Canal System bus tour. That's going to happen on Saturday, November 9th. It'll start at 1 p.m. and end at 4 p.m. I'm told that most of the bus slots are filled up. There might be a few more. But that one's going to go around the 3 levels of the Holyoke Canal System. We're going to stop about 5 places. This year I'm going to concentrate on the very oldest places. I can tell you 3 of them right now. One's going to be Pulaski Park, so we can look down into the canal. Another one will probably be where Open Square was, and that was the former Lyman Mill. And then the third one I hope to be at where the Hadley Falls workers were housed. We'll walk around that section. And that was made in 1848, so it's an extremely old part of Holyoke. I also give non-public tours. I give tours to high school students. I've done that 3 times this year. I'm going to give one to the Kestrel Land Trust of Amherst. Last year I gave them 2 tours of the canal. This year they already asked for 1, and they said it was a very popular tour. So I'm booked up with other tours, but it's a great fun for me. I like doing this as a hobby too.
And also, I'm so glad to see that the reception of this work of doing the tours is becoming something that people is really looking forward to it and utilizing this opportunity to enjoy the city, walk, and now even bike in some of those activities. But the most important part, to appreciate and learn from your knowledge and have a better understanding of what is the purpose of some of the buildings or some of the structures of the places that we see. And sometimes we just see it and maybe we wonder, what was for?
Yes. And we always try to improve our tours. And this year, Olivia is going to talk about this, the Smiths Ferry Cemetery has gotten a grant also. And it shows that Smiths Ferry has improved in the last 3 years because a small group of us go out there about 4 times a year and we actually clean the stones the best we can. We have a special chemical that helps us clean. And if you ever go by there and compare it to what was 3 years ago, it's a great improvement. The stones are cleaner, whiter, and the whole appearance of the cemetery is much better. And it's going to improve even more this year because the Community Preservation Act Committee has awarded Olivia a grant for that cemetery.
Right. So that grant is going towards historic graveyard services. A lady who has taught us how to do, we didn't have a clue, so we had to go to professional. And Tamara Conte is the lady who gave us a workshop. I gave the city a workshop. And so what she does, she's programmed to come in this July or August, the dates are unsure right now. But so she's going to put the broken stones. She's going to do the heavy lifting on this one. We know how to clean, but she brings her tripod in over her shoulder, pulls it in, sets it all up. She's a one-woman show. She says, "This is how you do it," and she's got all the equipment for it. So, plus the epoxy and the different kinds of materials that reset the stones, so that there's 10 stones approximately that are broken or fallen and need to be put back or reset. So Tamara will be doing that. So that's going to be great. We'll have plenty of pictures and post that on the website on Facebook. So that was we were thankful to the Community Preservation Committee that awarded us a grant for it's approximately $5,000 for that, and she'll probably take a week to 2 weeks depending on the weather. If it's, I don't know how epoxy dries, if it's real humid like it is today, or rainy or things. So she's a difficult lady to get because she's all over the country. She works all over the country and outside of the country for workshops. But she's originally from New Salem, Massachusetts, so it's right up the road. So and then after we finish with Smith's Ferry, then we'll move towards probably Rock Valley. That's a city-owned cemetery. And another older cemetery is Elmwood. It's the oldest cemetery in the city. It's maintained by Forestdale. So they keep up, they're able to keep up the maintenance, whereas the city has some difficulty with all their other projects they have. So we'll be working on keeping an eye on Smith's Ferry, then working towards Rock Valley. And there's a gentleman called Earl Brick, who's actually a descendant of the Luddington family who's buried there in Rock Valley. So we check in with Earl all the time. It's like, what do you need, Earl? So he's very protective of that, and because his ancestors are there. So that will happen in the fall, probably following in the spring, and we'll just keep going.
In the year 2020, I'm going to have more tours, and I actually told Olivia, can you do one of our cemetery cleanups at the Rock Valley Cemetery? And she agreed. And because in the year 2020, I want to have 2 cemetery tours more, and one will be at the Rock Valley. And I told her it's not clean enough. Some of the stones are really, and I have to see some of these to figure out the history of it. And no one's really taken really sharp care of it in a long time. And the other tour I want to do next year is Forestdale Cemetery. So I keep adding new tours every year, repeat the most popular ones. And next year I want to do a couple park tours also. So get people really involved. They seem to like the ones that have to do with water or parks the most.
You also did a tour, the Veterans Park tour. We went around the St. Jeromes and Church and the Holyoke Catholic area where Providence Hospital used to be. It was all this very thickly settled area, which Bob's very good at describing and giving a lot of the details. He does his research, that's for sure.
Well, she had mentioned 3 years ago I gave the St. Jeromes Church campus tour. And I'm actually going to do that one next year, 2020, but I'm going to do it from the point of view of Veterans Park. So stay around Veterans Park, but point out things that are around the perimeter of it. And so she read my mind, because she knows a little how I think. And I also want to do one around the Holyoke Public Library, but point it outwards. So you're not going to go in the library, but point out towards the perimeter. The Masonic temple is around it. There's a former churches around it. One burned down, but there's still 2 around it. And I want to talk about those. Most people don't know what these things were. And it's good to get people involved and give details.
And also thinking about, particularly on the library, the way it is laid out, the face towards Maple Street showing the classical and original structure, and then the one facing Chestnut being the new and modern, and how they connect. And at some point, they are connected, but they don't touch each other. So it is a really interesting design and way to put different generations of a same building.
Yes. I think they did a good job on the building. Some people would have preferred to keep the old building and refurbish inside. I think they did a good job. Olivia has one more grant she won through CPA, and I hope she mentions it. It's something about a lantern.
Okay. Before we go to the lantern, I want to mention one other tour that we had in the springtime from a forester named Tom Cass, who did a tree tour around the city. And it was very well attended. Actually, he was booked up within 2 weeks. People just called right away. So he's planning, that was so well received. So we're going to talk him into doing it again in the fall. So he can cover maybe the same trees or a new. There were about 6 or 8 trees that he discussed, and he went into the scientific names and a lot of information that he knows all about. His regular job is forester and tree consultant. So he's in town, and that's his thing. He knows all about the trees. So it's great to tap on people who have a project or an interest, and we go with it.
He also gave an in-library presentation this year on the golf courses of Holyoke. And it turns out there's used to be 3 golf courses in Holyoke. Now there's 2. Both of those 2 that are still here started off being in the city of Northampton, but we gained it through a land acquisition in 1909. And he talked about all those golf courses. So slowly, between Tom Cass and I, we're covering most of Holyoke. It'll take us 100 years, but we can do it.
So, Olivia, tell us a little about the lantern.
The
project.
lantern, okay. Well, if you go out the side door of the City Hall and walk into the Annex, the Annex is a building that used to house the Holyoke Police Department. So that's a whole nother tour we can give one of these days. The Annex is built like a fort because there are cells in there, 2 levels of cells, males on one side, females on the other side, and all kinds of back stairways and ways that it's a tour. People have gone over there for Halloween kind of things. So, and there was an art display there at one time, but it has to be set up. So, but in the meantime, there's a side door on the Annex that had 2 lanterns, high up, original to the building. And there's another 2 lanterns on the other side that faces the courthouse. So those are the exact lanterns that match the City Hall lanterns. Well, somehow one lantern was gone, been missing for who knows how long. So we inquired about from the custodians or from the DPW, did you have a lantern? It looks like that anywhere. What happened to it? Nobody knew. Nobody knew anything about this missing lantern. So at that time, Bill Fuqua was the department chair. So he said, Bill. And at that time, Dean Tech had a metal shop. And so we approached Mr. Fuqua and said, any way we could get Dean Tech students to replicate and make a copy of the lanterns that we have a sample of, and they replicate and put the 2 lanterns back in the wall. The holes are still there in the wall. And actually, they're closed now, but at one point there were families of birds going in and out, And also they use the lanterns for their nests too. So there are all kinds of debris and stuff in there. So anyway, Mr. Fuqua said, sure, after some prodding. Long story short, Mr. Fuqua left, Dean Tech shop closed, and there was a box there was a lantern that was deconstructed in a box at Dean. And so the principal at Dean said, I called him, I said, you probably don't know this, but you have a lantern from the Annex. He says, you know where it is? I says, yeah, I'll come show you. And since the shop at that time was closing, any way we could get, I could pick up the lantern and go to Plan B. So he said, sure, come on over, come and get it. So it's this small box. Well, now it's in, we did find a private blacksmith agreed to work on the lantern, and we applied for a grant from the Community Preservation Act. And so he's Camille Peters, who is in Diesel Works, has it, and he's replicated it, so it's not ready to go up yet, but it's in the works. So it's going to be a similar type lantern that was there before. It's not the original, but it will look like the original. And also we have West Side Finishing, which is a business in the behind Morgan School. They agreed to powder coat it at no cost. So we have it's kind of a community effort to go. So we'll also take pictures of that and make sure that gets some press and some Kodak moments when those go back on the building. So
And also,
that's it.
and also thinking, like you mentioned, Olivia, the fact that it's community chipping in to make these projects to work, and knowing Camille's work, he's a master in this. And what a very thing to recognize, that having local talent doing this work for the benefit of the city, and having that lantern being replaced. And yeah, it could be a replica, but made with the care of make the whole restructuring to look seamless. And that's a beautiful work of putting the history in display, and at the same time with the touch of the modern and the contemporary generations doing all the effort to keep the history alive.
Yeah.
This is amazing. This is fascinating to know how much history do we have, and that the efforts to continue preserving this history and educating our current generation and future generations on what this history means and how does reflect in our current times is another way to keep educating our own whole community about what it means to live in a city so innovative and so unique like Holyoke. And there's also one more thing that you have that I didn't know about, which is the
History Camp.
The History Camp.
The History Camp is a great program that comes from the Pioneer Valley Historical Network. And it's a day-long conference. And it's held at the Kittredge Center at the Holyoke Community College on Saturday, July 27th. And you have to register to, I think it's a $25 cost, which includes lunch, which you said in the, also there's a lot of networking going on. So there's people who set tables up around in the room, and you can, sometimes there's presentations going on during lunch, sometimes not. There's presentations can be like 40 to 45 to 50 minutes long, and they cover a range of everything. It's not just local. It's not, actually in the past, it wasn't even really Holyoke local history. It was history in the Pioneer Valley, gentleman who used to teach at Sturbridge Village. He brought his presentation of early American shoes, pies, early American pie recipes. I mean, it goes from fruit to nuts. So it's fun. It's worth going. You don't have to stay. If you pick a couple of sessions you want to go to, and you can come and go as you please. So this I think has maybe the third year that's happening at Holyoke Community. And the website is pioneervalleyhistory@gmail.com. So I'll leave this information here with Johan, so he'll have it. Or you can contact us, HolyokePreservationTrust.org. We can give you some information, or Bob Comeau, or yourself. So thank you so much for inviting us, and we're looking forward to more tours and more history.
Thank you so much for being here today and for all this work that you put and providing the city with so many options to learn, to be part of the restoration and preservation of the history. And this is just a way to show that commitment and that love for history that, like you said, Olivia, is fun.
It's fun.
Sometimes
yes.
we think history as something that might be boring or uninteresting, and actually so much fun in it to discover and rediscover and to realize how much we are connected to it.
Yeah, lots of fun. Good.
Thank you so much for being here, Bob and Olivia, and the invitation remains open for you to come back at any time.
Okay.
Should you have any more information and activities to share with the public.
Okay, thank you.
So this is our conversation with Olivia Mausel and Bob Comeau. And this session has been recorded here in the studio of New England Media Lab inside Gateway City Arts in Holyoke, Massachusetts. I'm Johan Rashi Vega. Thank you for listening.